today's webinar, it will be a series of presentations by some very experienced people in some schools who've done quite amazing things in the energy area. Cynthia, followed by Venkata, then Jack, then Steve, and then we'll have a panel discussion and bring Alison Lappin in here from Our Lady of Nativity Primary School. So at the end, please stay around because we'll draw all these threads together and give you some top tips from this webinar. This diagram helps to explain what the Flick the Switch program was all about. The schools involved, and there were 5 of them this year. Last year we were working in the waste area with a similar number, and the year before that with about 12 or 13 schools. So this year, the way that it ran was that the schools would work with another group to do an audit within the school, so they knew what their energy data was. Considering what happened through the last 8 to 9 months, it was amazing that they've even managed to achieve all that, but they did have an audit. We then run workshops, which were supposed to be face-to-face, but we ended up having to convert those completely across to online learning, and they're a lot of fun. And then I've been coaching the schools to help form a committee and develop a plan. And then Steph's been working with the schools to help carry out their plan and to network and also arrange for a visit to their school. And then the next stage, which I imagine we're soonish about to enter into, will be where the schools do have a second audit where they'll be gathering data, possibly from the school and possibly from home. But that was the theory. But, the best laid plans of men and so on often don't work out because of the virus. So we're now at the final stage now where we are celebrating the success of these schools, but we are encouraging them to be entering into awards and also to be entering into the Resource Smart Schools program as well. So all the work they've done through this program will give them a good foundation for the Resource Smart Schools. So just to summarise some of the benefits, and I'm sure you all know this, but there are a number of quite phenomenal benefits of being involved in energy reduction at school. Number one, of course, is the cost savings to a school, that you are modelling responsible environmental practices to the whole community. You're involving families and you can be helping to reduce energy at school and at home, and you're engaging the students as the energy leaders in the school. And then, of course, as teachers, you'd all be aware of the quite amazing opportunities for student learning by integrating what they're doing into the curriculum. Now, here's a recent graph which we only put together over the last few days to show the electricity usage of a typical primary school in Moonee Valley. And the top graph over here is figures for the data for 2019, and look at the difference for the same period for 2020. When you have a look, though, at how much energy a school is using, what we know is that that particular school, in a typical year, are using as much energy as about 40 homes. About 40 homes, and contributing significant amounts of emitting carbon dioxide, also costing the school in the order of about $40,000. This is pretty typical for a medium-sized primary school. We have a look at gas, and not all schools do have gas, but in this case, you can see here the obvious great peak during the middle of winter when the gas is being used for heating within the school. But again, a large cost, so in the order of, say, $10,000. So combining the electricity and the gas, a typical primary school could be looking at spending up to $50,000 a year on their energy bills, and their total emissions getting up there to something like about 36 tonnes. And for a typical household, like any one of ours, it would be about 6. So we're talking about quite a marked increase in the amount of both energy costs and carbon dioxide over that period of time compared to schools compared to homes. Now, some of our learnings, just very briefly, what we have learned is from all the work we've done with all these schools, the key really in the operations is good planning. Good planning, focusing on looking very carefully at areas where you can be addressing the heating and cooling of the school, having efficient lighting in the school, having efficient appliances, renewable energy where possible, and changing the behaviour of people in the schools. We could at least be reducing the energy bills by anything like 10 to 30% just by changing the behaviour within a school. And at the heart of it all is having a culture within the school of sustainability, involving the students in these practical projects and having a structure for student leaders in the school. And this all leads then to opportunities of networking like they are today with other schools, of moving on to resource smart schools if they're not already there, working with all the resources of Cool Australia and our own resources that are available, and also partnering there with the Moonee Valley City Council. And now for our 4 guest speakers, and I'll hand back at this point to Jane.
So that was a good summation by Pat of what's been happening this year at the Moonee Valley City Council with different schools. What we're doing and why we're recording this is because this can still go to other people as well after today. But we wanted to invite some speakers from leading schools across Melbourne to tell you all what they've been doing. Some of them have been on the journey for a while. Some of them are new to their school, still on the journey. But they're very, very kindly donated their time to come and talk to us all today. So let me introduce you to them all. They're going to give a presentation. And if there's time, then I might give them a question or two. If you have a burning question you'd like to put to them, please put it in the chat room and we can do that. So our first speaker is Cynthia Menon. Where's Cynthia? Put your hand up. Yep, Cynthia, who is the leader of learning and sustainability at St Macartn's Parish Primary School in Mornington. St Macartn's was a finalist in the 2019 Resource Smart Awards under the Community Leadership Primary School category. And as a new member of the team in the leadership team at this school, Cynthia has come to understand that her challenge going forward is really maintaining the very high level of activity that's already happening. So we're going to start with a video. Go, Pat. There you go, Cynthia.
Thank you. So I am new to this school this year, and our school has really had a high level of engagement from students. We've got a sound structure for student leadership. So there are energy leaders, energy, water, waste, biodiversity. And that leadership structure is actually for the year sixes. So you've got 2 year sixes for each of those areas, but then it also in the past has been from prep to 6. So you've got 2 students from each class representing each of those areas. And there's been regular reporting to the community. And on our website, you can see this is just a snapshot of energy and what the school has done in the past. So Carmela Theobald, who was here before, would upload reports that the students had written along with her help so that the community was aware of energy. Sorry, this is just a message of Smith.
It's rather difficult to mute the school bell, isn't it?
It is very difficult. And we've really been guided by the Resource Smart Schools program with series, and that's funded for. So there's no cost to the school. It's actually a really good incentive to be a part of that program. We've also got a really good campus structure. So our whole school was built from a sustainability platform. So we've got the solar panels, as you saw in the video, but we've also got chimneys that extract the heat from the pod areas during the day, so that when teachers walk in the morning and students walk in, it's nice and cool. So we've got, it's not just solar, there's a few other things, and the way that the buildings were designed facing north to minimise energy use as well. Thanks. Next, thanks. So 2020, I had all these plans and we just had to readjust. So with COVID, the leaders that we've got the year 6 leaders, but then we didn't get to do the other leaders throughout the school. We are going to start, even though it's late in the year, we're going to start the energy leaders doing audits and have the Prep to 6 structure, even if it's just for a few weeks, just to get back into it for next year. We did have a year 6 virtual camp, and I can see that Jason's on. Hello, Jason. So Jason is our series facilitator, our Resource Smart Schools facilitator for St. Max, and he helped to collaborate to create this camp. And on that virtual camp, we had students do audits at home. So it was energy, water, waste and biodiversity, like by a scavenger hunt. So we tried to make it as fun as possible. We would like to, sorry, can you go back a bit?
Sorry.
We'd like to re-establish the term reports, because that was really, that's been really good. And I think that we really need to re-establish that and have the student voice of how can we improve energy and integrate with maths. Thank you. Next. So in the future, definitely keeping that leadership system going from Prep to 6, that is a key, keeping those reports going, and also including sustainability in the annual action plan. It hasn't been there in the past. We've had sustainability has been really good, but I think it's really important to have it in the annual action plan, and also to have that staff voice and parent voice as well. Have a parent committee that's involved in voicing their opinions about how we're using energy and how they think that we could improve. I think that that's a good way forward as well. Thanks, Jane.
Okay. Thanks, Cynthia. That's a good overview of some of the things you're doing at your school. I suppose what we wanted to do was ask you, what do you think some of the key learnings, I know you're new to the school, but what are some of your key learnings in running this Lead for Change, particularly around energy?
I think that the main thing is that you really need to, it's really about relationships. So building those relationships with the students and the staff, and that leadership aspect is just so important. You can't do it as one person. It really
just a
joint effort.
And so I just muted somebody, I could hear them. So in what role were you taking in that sort of creating relationships? What were you doing to do that?
Well, for me, it's just a matter of getting to know, like it sounds very basic, Jane, but really getting to know staff. I think that when you're involved in maintaining and bringing about change, you really need to have that relationship going. So because when you're known as a person, you're respected as a person, that's when you can bring about change, rather than just coming in and saying, oh, this is what we're doing.
And I suppose that was difficult because you were new and you were following somebody who you've mentioned to me before who was very strong in the school. So how was it following that person?
So I suppose picking up from where we've left off. So, I mean, with the leadership roles, that's worked well in the past. So it would be like, well, why would we ditch that when we know that works? So in that respect, that's where the leadership is important, but also, respecting what's been done in the past while also maintaining and building those relationships, because I am new. Yep.
And I suppose if you had to say, what would you say to people watching would be some of your top tips in actually leading change in the school?
Modelling. So modelling by example, and knowing that, because I don't get things right all the time in my life. And I mean, I could tell a story, but I won't do it now. Maybe at the end. No,
tell the story.
Tell the story. Okay. Yeah. So I don't live in Mornington. I'm the sustainability leader and I live the furthest away, and it makes me feel a little bit ill. So at the start of the year, and in my previous job too, I'd always get public transport, and I was at the start of the year too getting public transport from South Clayton to Mornington. And then COVID hit, and I'm living with my parents who are elderly and at risk. And so I made the choice not to get the public transport because I didn't want to put them at risk. And so now I'm back in a position where I'm actually emitting more carbon than probably any other teacher at the school. And I'm thinking, but I am also thinking, well, how am I going to get back? Like, because I want to get back on the public transport. How am I going to do this and keep my family safe at the same time? So my mind's ticking away, and I'm ready for next year to get back on the public transport. But just to be okay, for me to be okay with, it's okay that it's not the way I want it to. So how am I going to get back to a space where I was?
So knowing that you haven't been able to do it in relation to your transport, what other things have you been able to model to show other people?
Oh, so I suppose the attention's gone more towards like the biodiversity, but and waste too. So they know, that I try and reduce my waste where I can. So there's other areas of sustainability, and also just not. I suppose like I'm in a room, in an office now, the lights are off. I don't put the fan, I don't put there isn't an aircon in here, but like I try and keep those things off as far as possible. So just little, it sounds like little things, but when people see you do it, it makes a big difference.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that was a good summation of your school and what you're doing. Anybody, any burning questions in the chat room there, Pat? I can't see. I think we'll just keep.
Here's one here.
Array?
How big is the solar array and how much did it cost?
Oh, that is a really good question. I think it was done through a grant. I don't have those figures with me at the moment, Liz, but I could get them and then I can send them through. Okay.
But we will hear from other schools who should be able to give us some prices for their solar array. And Ali, if this is correct, isn't it? You had a quote to put in a reasonably sized unit in your school, and it was between $50,000 and $60,000. Is that about the order?
Yeah, I've actually got a second quote now as well. So I've spoken to actually one of the dads, and that was something I was going to touch upon in our community, works for renewable energy. So there is a difference once you go over 30 kilowatts, I think, for them. So he'd highlighted that to me. So we've been able to get a quote that I think would maybe be more affordable for our school, our size. And we already have some solar panels, but I've got somebody coming out to see why they're not on and if we can actually fix those. So those have been some actions I've put into place since we would have last spoken, Pat.
So what was that's okay, Jane, could you tell us, Alison, what the quote was and how much it would reduce the energy of your school? About 57,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was about that, and that was going to reduce. I think was it take about $19,000-$20,000? I think off it.
Certainly, it was over 60% reduction.
Yeah, it definitely was, and even the latest quote that I've had in the last week or two, it was going to significantly reduce as well, nearly about half. I think it was going to be about 50% reduction, and that we'd be able to pay it off over. I think it was going to be 2.5 years.
Okay,
so there are places. I'm going to get a third quote just to see if we can get the best deal possible. And then
good business practice there, Ali.
Yeah. Well, I do like to keep people on their toes and play them off each other too. I think it's really important. That's right.
Thank you.
And let me just say the last thing, Cynthia has asked me to let you know that she is a member of the Catholic Schools Education for Sustainability Network, and she sits on the Environmentally Sustainable Development Committee. And so that if there's anyone from a Catholic school that would like to join the group or more information, can you put that in the chat and we'll send you some more information, or Pat, if you can put Cynthia's email there, that would be good too. So to get some real figures around and data around what we were talking about just then, we've got our next speaker is Venkata Kelva, who is the Sustainability Coordinator at Brentwood College, which is a 4-star secondary school in Glen Waverley. Brentwood Secondary College was a nominee in the 2019 Resource Smart Awards in the Secondary School Student Action Team category, and a winner in the 2016 Energy Secondary School of the Year. So Venkata, over to you. Pat, PowerPoint.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jane, for that introduction. Thanks for the City of Moonee Valley and Pat and Jane for inviting me to share our story. My name is Venkata. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator at Brentwood Secondary College. We are a 7 to 12 school located in Glen Waverley. We celebrated 50 years just last year. We are reasonably a big school with about 1,650 student enrollments as of this year. A vision for learning includes that we learn as a connected community to grow and as individuals who are future ready. And over the past few years, we've been working to make that future sustainable for everyone at Brentwood. Next. I have the privilege of leading the student leadership team at Brentwood called the Brentwood Green Team. We are inspired by this quotation from Mahatma Gandhi, where we would like to be the change that we would like to see around us. And we've been working very hard in order to create that change at Brentwood. The Green Team includes students from all year levels, 7 to 12. And every year we get normally 20 to 25 students that are actively involved in all the projects that we undertake every year. The students meet every week, usually on a Friday during lunchtime, and we discuss new projects as well as discuss our progress on the current projects and discuss the progress that we have made. As Jane mentioned, we are a 4-star Resource Smart School. We have completed our core biodiversity, energy, and waste modules, and we are working towards getting our 5th star by completing water. More recently, we have started focusing on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And as you can see in the logo, we've made it a part of our logo so that we are always reminded about these 17 SDGs. Next slide, please. Well, coming to the energy module, here are a few things that Brentwood has done. We have had positive results because of a combination of both the behavior change as well as a bit of an infrastructure upgrade. What you're seeing on the slide to the far right on the top is those little labels that we have created, and we have stuck them all around the college, especially on the doors near the handles, to remind the staff and the students to just turn off the appliances before exiting the classrooms. It has worked really well. Instead of having big reminders somewhere else in the room, placing them on the doors was really a better way of reminding staff. The second one is a reminder once again to staff or people using heating and cooling appliances. The label is stuck here like this on the remote control, as you can see, just reminding staff to keep the temperature of the heating or the cooling appliance to an ambient temperature recommended by the department. It is a fact that you can save nearly 3% on your heating or cooling bills for every degree that you set back on your thermostat. This has been a very big measure which has really given us positive results. The next one at the bottom is Switch Off Fortnight, which is another ongoing program that we run. Basically, the program involves staff to turn off all the appliances at the end of every term for a fortnight, not just by the device, but by their switch. So we just want to reduce that energy that would otherwise be consumed by the appliances in their standby mode. And an annual initiative that is undertaken by Brentwood is participating in the Earth Hour, once again to raise awareness on the importance of conserving energy. Next slide, please. We have also pledged to take 2, which is the Victorious Climate Change Pledge. Ever since we've been doing various things, especially the infrastructure upgrade, in order to reduce our energy usage as well as reduce our emissions. We were fortunate to win a $25,000 grant from BC, which was run through the Monash Council in 2016. And that 25,000 got us a 29.9 kilowatt solar PV system then. Next slide, please. Fast forward 3 years. Last year, we managed to upgrade our solar system by a further 68 kilowatt system. The leadership team at Brentwood was convinced with our first installation, which enabled us to easily approve the second installation. For the second installation, we put our own funds. It costed us nearly $80,000, and which the college has put out of its budget. Combined, currently we have a 98 kilowatt system, which is a total of 285 panels. And with the help of this system, we are not only able to reduce our energy usage by nearly 40%, but we are also happy that we are able to offset nearly 134 tons of CO2 emissions every year. Next slide, please. You're all aware that how passionate we are about numbers, teachers, the teaching fraternity love numbers. And this is something that makes Brentwood also happy about. The numbers speak for themselves. Over the past 5 years, our energy usage has been dropping significantly. And we have managed to bring it down by 25% in these 5 years. We're looking forward to other measures where we can reduce this further, but again, it involves investment. So my next step will be about convincing our leadership to upgrade it by in future. Next slide, please. We were also able to upgrade our gas system at the heating system at Brentwood, which has resulted in nearly 26% reduction in our gas usage as well. Overall, we are really convinced with what we have done here at Brentwood, and the numbers are always convincing, and they are always useful to bring everyone on board and do their part in order to be a factor in reducing the energy usage. Well, those are some of the tips that I have. We have also done a bit of calculation around our various resource usage and calculated our emissions, which we call as emissions. As you can see on the slide, we have over the past 5 years reduced our total emissions, and the offset has been coming from our solar generation, as well as some trees that we are planting on site for the National Tree Day. All types of recycling, be it cardboard or commingle, also has helped in offsetting some of our emissions. So the goal for Brentwood is to reduce these emissions further in future by both upgrading our solar system as well as planting several trees off-site in future. Next slide, please. So yeah, who wanted to know how we
I think we'll finish it there, Venkata. That was great. And as you can see, Venkata's journey is really backed up by a lot of facts and stats and proof of what's being done. So if you had to give people one top tip, Venkata, what would you say was the key to really leading this sort of behavior change at your school?
I'd say patience. Be patient. Okay, don't try to do everything overnight. Be patient. Sometimes things just take their own time. But as I've shown, collect the evidence, numbers or photos or pictures, something that can celebrate what you're doing. Once you get one success, story, you can inspire others to, come on board. And once you have people join you, you're not an individual anymore, you're a crowd, and crowd is always powerful. And I would pretty much echo what Cynthia had shared before. I think it's all about convincing everyone, both student and staff at your school, so that you have someone who can work alongside you. That's
great. We'll hear from you again on the panel, but that was a really good summary of what your school done, and well done, because we can see the stats are going down. So you've done some really good work. Really, that's fantastic. Thank you, Venkata.
Thank you, Jane.
So our next speaker is Jack Donkers. Jack is a professional sustainability coordinator at Beacon Hills College in Pakenham. Beacon Hill College was a winner in the 2019 Resource Smart Awards under the Campus, Infrastructure and Operations Schools category. What's really interesting, I find this really interesting, is Jack is only one of 2 sustainability professionals in Victoria that have been hired by a school to coordinate their sustainability activity. That's pretty interesting, guys. I think you're going to have some questions for Jack. So this gives Jack a unique perspective on their school's journey and a unique insight for us. So he's got a pretty interesting presentation. So take it away, Jack. We're looking forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Thank you so much, Jane. Just one really cool observation I saw with Venkata's presentation was that about 100 kilowatt system was 285 panels from 2019. So our 100 kilowatt system that we installed in 2014, that was actually 399 panels.
Wow.
And it cost us about half more than Venkata's system. So that just shows you how far the technology has come in the last 5 years. And it's a really, really positive thing to look at going forward with the renewable energy sector. We are actually getting cheaper and cheaper renewable energy. It's already bypassed fossil fuels. It's pretty awesome. All right, cool. Let's talk about Beacon Hills College. So to put it all into perspective, we're a big school. We've got big numbers. We've got 3,000 students, 400 staff across 2 campuses, our Pakenham and Berwick campus. We have a 720 kilowatt system, which I believe is the 2nd biggest in Victoria in the school at the moment. Second to Camberwell Grammar with an 880 kilowatt system. Don't worry, we're trying to beat that. So as you can see on the screen, our biggest usage in megawatts was in 2013 when we used 1,868 megawatt hours. And in 2019, last year, we're at 1,245 megawatt hours from the grid. And in total, from our grid usage and our solar usage, we used about 1,800 megawatt hours, which is still reduced from our 2013 usage, which I'll talk about continuing on. And obviously, because I like to put a dollar sign behind it, just to show business managers in particular that it's a really, really good thing for schools to look at energy. We saved last year alone $197,000. And I can see a couple of people shaking their heads, but that's a true number, and I can back that up with evidence. Can we please have the next slide? So, like for all the people shaking their heads, asking one question: how the hell do you get to this point? I would just like to say this picture is our Year 9 Centre at our Pakenham campus. You can also see a wetland area just behind it. So the green design, as well as the 130 kilowatt system and the water tanks, including the wetland area and the lizard lounge behind it. That's what won us the award last year that we were really, really happy about. We did a lot of consulting with different architects and builders to try to come up with a really low energy usage and low resource usage building. And this is that building. Next slide, please. So how did this start? It started in 2010. We were 5 years after building our second campus. We're a 30-year-old college, not as good as 50-year-old, but we're getting there. In 2010, we realized that we were using way too much resource. So what we wanted to do was actually audit all of our resources from our waste, which we do commercially. We don't use council waste streams. We want to audit our electricity, and our water. They were the big 3. In 2012, from the reports of that audit, the school took out 3,000 incandescent globes. In 2014, we, as a trial, installed a 100 kilowatt system at each campus. In our gym at Pakenham campus and on our technology building at our big Berwick campus. They were so much of a success that we did another 200 kilowatt install at our Berwick campus. And then in 2017, we did another 130 kilowatt install. So you can see how the numbers are starting to get higher and higher. That's when in 2018, we changed all our incandescent globes at our Pakenham campus. I came on board with the school at the end of 2016, start of 2017. So you can see that a lot more has happened from the 2017 to the 2019 period. Next slide, please. So just looking at all of those numbers collated, we have a 720 kilowatt system in place, generating 856 megawatt hours in 2019. The goal is net zero by 2025. So we put 322 megawatt hours into the grid. And remember, we took out 12,000 megawatt hours out of the grid. So we've still got a lot more to go. We are now looking at green building design for new buildings, including sensored lighting, sensored air conditioning and heating, and LEDs, double insulation walls, double glazed windows. And all of these have a price tag behind them, but it all pays off dividends the longer the building is around for. And we also include education and behaviour change programs, very similar to Venkata's programs, with teaching staff and students about turning things off after they leave the room, looking at heating and cooling temperatures, as well as whether we need to turn on things, and using outdoor classroom areas and trying to use as much natural resource as possible, because we sometimes just don't need that artificial resource in our lives. And from, like I said, we're saving around 200 grand annually on our electricity bills. Yes, Pat. All good? All right.
Keep going.
All right, great. So how did we start? From us, it was very much a top-down approach. We looked at our business manager, started with environmental auditing and looking at our bills and how we could lower our bills financially. So from that, we looked at our electricity usage, and the actual environmental aspect of our electricity reduction was a byproduct of what we were doing to reduce our financial dividends. And then I came on board and I said, well, actually, that should be front and center. And they were like, oh, we work in a close relationship with the two. So from the environmental auditing, we wrote a business case looking to our leadership team and to our board, because we are a board-run school, talking about reduction in emissions, reduction in cost, as well as the positive aspects of bringing out, showing the community that we are on the same line of goals as the students, as well as trying to reduce our impact so that it actually secures a future for our students going forward. Sorry, I'm rushing this, and I'm very sorry about that. It's a big
that's all good.
presentation, and it's a small amount of time.
That's good.
Some of the main tips that I will give you is looking at your effort and looking at your time frame, and putting those two things on a 2D plot, and then looking at what has a low effort and a low time frame, what has a high effort and a low time frame, what has a low effort and a high time frame, and then what has a high effort and a high time frame. Mm. And then you start by going 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you do the first things which has a low effort and a low time frame, like telling your colleagues that, you know, they shouldn't be having the air conditioner on at 18 degrees during summer. It's very simple, something that you can do straight off the bat. And then just trying to find that low-hanging fruit, starting then and then working your way up as more people get on board, more people are sympathetic, and more people understand the reason why we are trying to improve the schools environmentally as well as reduce our electricity.
I think I'll stop you there, Jack.
Absolutely.
That's
Stay
fantastic.
passionate.
That was a good. We'll come again. We'll come to you again. I when I was talking to Jack before yesterday, I remember talking to him and asking him and said, "Are you a teacher? Like, how do you do all this stuff?" And then when you told me that you weren't, and I just said, "That's just awesome." I think that's such an awesome model of a school hiring someone full-time to do this. It sort of shows you that they're really committed to it. But Jack showed us on the first couple of slides why, because he's saving the money. Why wouldn't you do that? So
I pay myself basically.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I work mainly with the administration of the school, so I work directly with the property manager and the business manager. And then I also do facilitate education sessions for students. So I do similar things to what Lee and Jason do with series, except I do it within Beacon Hills College as an everyday.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Jack. That was fantastic. Our final speaker is Stephen Stanecki, who is the Environmental Programs Coordinator at Albert Park College. The curriculum at Albert Park College has an environmental focus across all years of the schooling. And Stephen is part of delivering the Year 9 Da Vinci project, which is an environmental inquiry and creative endeavour. Stephen's sitting today at Princess Pier in Port Melbourne. He says he can see the pier from where he sits. And it's this school's external classroom with a really unique marine setting. Stephen I've already pushed the gun on your, Steve's given us some summer reading, everybody, and I already put it in the chat room and push enter. I didn't mean to, Stephen, but it's already there. So that's what that was. I put up a whole bunch of links to some reading. That's courtesy of Stephen, everybody. Go for it, Stephen.
There are actually a couple of podcasts, and one of them's, if you've done your permaculture design course, it should have been on your reading list. It's Christopher Alexander's A Pattern Language. Thanks. I actually come from, I'm standing on or sitting on Boonwurrung water. So I wanted to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and acknowledge that the land was never ceded. It's stolen land, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Where I am sitting is on Princess Pier. I can see the Spirit of Tasmania docked just out my window. And a lot of things that have been mentioned by previous speakers, something that I wanted to touch on. We're finishing our 10th year as a school, so we're still finding our way. And I just wanted to, if you go to the next slide, I'll show you our values. So one of the values of our school is, I think we've missed one there. We've got core values, and one of them is the environment, and one of our statements under that is that we aim to be an environmentally friendly school. Well, I've made it my mission to change that word from aim to are. So if we go to the next slide. So we've been busy during remote learning. I was busy. I basically threw myself into some work, which is all of everyone you've seen so far has audited. Everyone has got the numbers, and the data is key. Data is essential. So if there's something that you're sort of curious as to what to do, it's auditing. And we also remotely got together students, school counsellors, and the principal team, and we worked with a man called Brett Hedger, who works at the City of Port Phillip. I'm not sure, Steph, if you've collaborated with him in any capacity, but he is a firecracker. So if you do come across him, do listen. He has wise words, and he doesn't mince them. So this is our vision statement for the environment. It's there, it's something. It hasn't yet really been shared with staff in a formal capacity. We're still sort of grappling with it, and the start and the end to me are key, and that's we as a school aim to lead a movement of schools to create a sustainable future of all. And I'd even call into question that word sustainable, because I wonder if we can actually sustain this way of living. And then the final one is that sustainability is business as usual. And so something like, you know, I'm a classroom teacher. I teach for 19 hours and I have 1 hour to coordinate all of this stuff. I don't spend 1 hour doing all of this stuff. I'm not trained to do this sort of stuff either. And so business as usual is something that is, you know, the business is not my responsibility. So if we could go across to the next slide. Just some, I guess, some things to cover is that we do have throughout our curriculum, we do have a strong environmental thread running through. It's not really a thread. It's like, it is a sort of patches of stuff. And that's next year's work, is to get all of that curriculum in alignment with all of our extracurricular programs. We have worked with So Eco for Schools. They're a great organization. And if I can say one thing about Claire Nolan, she is tenacious. She has somehow managed to get waste audits at both campuses during 6 months of lockdown. So full credit to her. Our Da Vinci project is, I'll just sort of give you the outline of it in the next slide. It's focused only on Year 9. So Year 8s, there's no real direct environmental link. They come to Year 9, they get the Da Vinci project, and then they sort of leave, go on and start like proto VCE at Year 10. It's called like our senior years sort of program. We have an Enviro Club, and I've italicized the Enviro team because what we did this year was we worked with the club and did this vision statement process, and they worked out that they need a team because the club was okay, people coming in, but they actually needed to meet outside of that club to do work. We're part of Resource Smart Schools. I think we saw Laura Nix. So hi, Laura. We still don't have a star after 6 years, or we're entering our 6th year next year. We've got 3 campuses that we need to certify. We've got 6 campuses in total, another one coming online in a few years. But we're also we've also signed up to Climate Active, which is the federal carbon neutral certification body. Some wins for this year was the establishment of a sustainability subcommittee, and I think this one's critical. This is within sits under the school council, and one of the great achievements of our outgoing school captain Oscar Pierce, there's a name that you should write down and listen for, is the establishment of a sustainability fund, and that is that money saved from sustainability initiatives that are proven go into a sustainability fund to be reinvested. And so the example that I use when delivering it to other people is, if we buy solar panels, that there is a fund sitting there waiting to replace them at the end of their usable life with the latest technology. And another fantastic thing that's happened is the Warru Warru Sustainable Schools Alliance. Warru Warru means heaven and stars. It also means to look beyond, and it comes from the Kulin Nation languages, the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri use that to talk about the heaven and the stars. And that's an alliance between Albert Park Primary and Albert Park Preschool, or Albert Park Kindergarten, the first carbon neutral certified kindergarten in Australia. So if we go to the next slide. So yeah, as I said, we've got a dedicated campus, and even within that, I'm on the Prince's Pier. This is solely for environmental inquiry. And if you're reading into that, you can see that there is a massive influx of students, and the state government hasn't accounted for that with the unified structure that is a school. But yeah, we spend 6 hours a week, which is more than 1/5 of the United Students Week school week on environmental inquiry and creative endeavour within the Da Vinci project. But yeah, if we could go forward, what I really did want to talk to you about was, if we could go to the next slide, yeah, is the Warru Warru, we call it sort of shortened to WUSA, and that's we've got this vision to be a carbon neutral precinct, that a parent of Albert Park could send their child to the childcare at Albert Park Kinder, and they could graduate in VCE having had carbon neutral education. One of the key tenets of Warru Warru is to uphold the promise to Bunjil, which is to look after the Babups and look after country. And we're just beginning to share our learning and encourage student agency and student voice, which is so critical within that fly zone model that we get wrapped around the head from above as state government schools. Next slide. So we did our data search. it was edifying. 40% of our electricity was accounts for our carbon emissions, but 30% is taken up from transport, and that's our international long haul flights for the World Challenge. So this is our low hanging fruit that sorry, it's Jason, wasn't it? That talked about where we can purchase green power in the first instance, and we no longer emit carbon. Green power is something that every state government school can request from Red Energy or the smaller provider who I can't remember. And it's an extra tariff. You pay it, you're no longer polluting for your electricity. And most organizations will find that 60% or more of their carbon emissions come from electricity. So there's your low hanging fruit right there. State schools are locked into contracts with Red Energy, Michael. And also with our transport, the long haul flights now need to be offset as a upfront fee, and that fee isn't much, and it is authentic. It's a legitimate carbon offset, but it does also speak long term about the community's desire to have World Challenge and be a carbon neutral school, and that tension and which one do you have your cake or do you eat it? So engaging with SoEco for schools, you can see that the waste only accounts for 6%
I'll get you to
of our
finish it
carbon
up,
emissions.
Stephen.
Yeah,
please,
go on.
Sorry.
Yeah, if we could just go to the last slide, then I really do want to talk to that one. And that's you talking about energy, and you're a classroom teacher. So what is an efficient use of your energy, and who has the most power? And that's leadership. If leadership are not buying into this, if you don't have leadership leading on this matter and directing assistant principals and curriculum leaders, etc., to work on it, then that's where you need to apply your energy, is to convince them to take action and lead on this matter. So I'll just end there.